I got this on video, and I'm so grateful that I did, is there's a video of Micah taking the ball, dribbling the ball down the field, and scoring his first soccer goal ever in a game with his jersey, everything. And he's already proud as punch that he's got a jersey on. And the video is only 13 seconds long. It is him dribbling down the field, scoring the goal, and then turning around and sprinting as fast as he can right back to me, his father, with the biggest smile on his face. And the video is just such gold because what I realized in that is how much joy and excitement I had as a father, not watching him score his first goal, but watching the joy on that kid's face.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christy Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We are in week 4 already on cultivating a spiritual growth environment in our homes. Today, we are talking about joy permission, giving our kids joy permission. I just genuinely believe that one of the benchmarks for being a great parent is, do my kids experience joy? And that's what this episode is about today. Part of that process, I want to announce this. If you didn't hear this last week, we have launched the My Kids EQ Fall Coaching Cohort. It is coming up beginning in a few weeks. You can check out the show notes there. You get the first 8 weeks of the curriculum and the Kids EQ Academy curriculum. It's a biblically based emotional intelligence program for kids. And there's not a lot that's out there like it. Actually, I don't know of anything else out there that's like it. The 8-week cohort is really about me. I journey with you. There's live coaching calls. You'll watch videos on how to implement the curriculum, why it's important, and that sort of thing. So we would love to have you join for that. Take a look at that in the show notes today. Also, the men's coaching discipleship program. Make sure you sign up if you're interested in that. Sign the interest form because we'll be sending emails out here in the coming weeks. We'd love for you to be the first to know on that. I'm excited. The rebrand is coming up. The Famous Home podcast. I'm going to drop a little teaser right now. It's going to be new music. It's just, there's a lot of cool things. It'll be a lot of fun. It's probably more fun for us on the back end just because it's a refresh for us. Rebrand, whole new vision for how we're doing this. And I think you'll see some excitement coming out of that. So really, really excited about that. It's only a couple more weeks coming, the unveiling of it. So this week, episode 4 out of 5, which is wild. We're almost done through the summer series here. Don't forget too that we have the PDF workbook downloads for you for all 3 of these series. So we did the emotionally healthy parents, we did the emotionally safe marriage, and now we're doing spiritual growth environment for your kids. All 3 of those are set up in 5-episode series with workbook downloadable worksheets for you to be able to go through with your spouse or your small group. So without further ado, here's giving your kids joy permission. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. I wanted to talk a little bit about the journey of parenting, some lessons that we are learning, but also more than anything, I want to encourage, I think, each of us as it relates to the journey of being a parent. You know, there's so much overwhelm, anxiety in our culture, depression today. There's a lot warring on our hearts for our kids, and it can be overwhelming. And one of the things that I find is that we tend to go through seasons, in and out of seasons, where we are what feel like to be in survival mode, or we have one particular child that we're really, really focused on because that child is maybe struggling a little bit in some particular area of their lives. And then there's times where it's like, you know what? We're all just tired and exhausted and that type of thing. But what I find is that, and I would imagine that most families are the same, is that when we focus on the exhaustion, when we focus on the survival seasons, we tend to be at each other a little bit more. We tend to be, I just want to say, more irritable, frustrated, and the future can look bleak. The future can look very difficult and rough, and it might look like, man, really, what are we doing? Because as they say, the days are long and the years are short. But when those long days can be real. And what I'm realizing as a young father myself, 11 years into this thing, with an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 3-year-old, is that I'm learning to come out of those exhausted survival seasons with a lot more joy, and to also reprioritize how I'm looking at those survival seasons in the grand scheme of things. That a lot of times what we tend to make big deals really are not that big of a deal. At least that's my case anyway. And I'm encouraged by that right now. I'm actually really encouraged that the direction of our parenting is changing. And what's fascinating about that is I think that when we commit ourselves as parents, as adults, as humans, to the process of becoming, and we talk about that often. We talk about that in the Famous Own book. We talk about that in our My Kids EQ course. We talk about that in the Kids EQ Academy, that the whole idea of our kids become who we are. And so the word becoming is actually a much better word for how our kids will turn out than the word parenting. And I talk about this, actually, I talk a lot about this in an episode that just came out on Focus on the Family's broadcast this week. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the show notes so that you can link to that as well. And you can listen in on that talk that I gave at Focus on the Family on helping our children talk about their emotions and entering into our children's world. And what I've learned about that is, as a father, when I enter into my children's world, it actually opens up my own world, because I realize that as a father entering into my child's world, I have a father who's entering into mine as well. And often I think we miss that when we are in heavy, heavy moments. And I want to encourage us, our 3-year-old, Micah, who is, you can't get a ball out of his hand, or off his foot, I should say, is playing soccer right now. And he had his very first soccer game a couple weeks ago. And in that soccer game, it's youth for soccer, right? So, it's kind of like herding cats. But I have a video that I got this on video, and I'm so grateful that I did, there's a video of Micah taking the ball, dribbling the ball down the field, and scoring his first soccer goal ever in a game with his jersey, everything. And he's already proud as punch that he's got a jersey on. And the video is only 13 seconds long. It is him dribbling down the field, scoring the goal, and then turning around and sprinting as fast as he can right back to me, his father, with the biggest smile on his face. And the video is just such gold, because what I realized in that is how much joy and excitement I had as a father, not watching him score his first goal, but watching the joy on that kid's face. And it made me realize that the Heavenly Father is as pleased with me when I'm experiencing joy in my life. What father, what mother is not excited about seeing joy on their child's face? And yet so often what we do is we tend to major on the minors and minor on the majors, and the little details throughout the day, the focus stuff and when the days are really, really long, we tend to miss it. And I did this just last night. Micah wanted to play a game before bedtime. And I was like, sure, let's play a game before bedtime. But everybody joins in. But what I did as a dad is I waited till the last minute, which was not good because it's already getting late and past their bedtime. And then the game, we're playing Monopoly Junior of all things. And the game is, everyone is, the dog is in there and, causing a little bit of chaos. And the kids are just kind of, distracted by other toys in the room. And they're, not paying attention to when they have to roll the dice. And And I'm kind of trying to hurry this thing along. Not even kind of. I'm trying to hurry this thing along because I want to get everybody to bed, because I needed to get to bed and I wanted to read a little bit, have some alone time. And there's all good things to be said for all of these things. The issue, though, is when my daughter looks at me and says, Dad, I don't know why we're playing because you're not having very much fun. Y'all, those are the moments where I believe that we have to pay attention to what we're focusing on, to what we're prioritizing, because she was right. She was so right. And my daughter picked up on my lack of joy. She picked up on my frustration. And it was a challenge for me to go back to that soccer field and go, man, I want my kids to experience their father experiencing joy, because when their father experiences joy, it gives them permission to experience joy too. And without me experiencing joy, we don't give our kids permission to feel joy, because what we end up doing is we end up sending the message that we have to hurry. There's not enough time for this. There's not enough. There's not enough. There's not enough. And then we go into a scarcity mindset. And as Jamie Winship talks about, he sees out of economic theory, he talks about two primary mindsets, worldviews, if you will. That there's the scarcity worldview and the abundance worldview. The scarcity worldview is there's not enough time. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough, good enough, whatever enough. And then on the other side of this is I am loved, I am seen, there is enough resources, there is enough, I am enough. We work from rest, not for rest. There's an abundance, there's an overflow, and out of that overflow is what I give to my kids. And again, listen, we all have to take care of ourselves in order to experience that abundance. I've lived in scarcity for a lot of my life, and I am, for the first time, I wouldn't say for the first time, I think we go ebb and flow in and out of this. But for me, and I'm just talking about this as a father, I am seeing the importance of me as a father living out of abundance, because when I live out of abundance, I give my kids that abundance, and that abundance is a trickle-down effect. And I think we're living in a culture today where we all are living out of scarcity. There's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough. Or I'm afraid of my kids turning out a certain way. I'm afraid of my kids not being smart enough, athletic enough, too shy, too loud, too boisterous, too whatever, too annoying, too... And what we do then is we micromanage our kids rather than cultivating an environment where we pass down a spirit of peace, a spirit of joy, a spirit of love, and give them the environment from which they can then blossom and they can live out of abundance. Because if we're living out of scarcity, our kids are going to live out of scarcity. Again, research shows this over and over again. Our kids become who we are. And so for me, I'm excited right now because I think that, again, and I'm saying this not because I'm getting it perfect, because just last night I stepped into a scarcity mindset with the game. And in that moment, in those moments, because we're going to mess it up. We're not going to always live out of abundance. We're not going to always be living out of joy. We are going to get tired. We are going to get exhausted. And the word for that, to repair that, we talk about this in the Famous at Home book, is a word called repair, where you apologize to your kids. You know what? I'm really sorry. You're right. And I need to correct this. And I either, one, need to quit the game, or number two, I need to enter it and start having fun with you guys and not rushing this thing. And which is what I did. I apologized, and then we made the game a lot more fun after that. And of course Kennedy won, so that made her even happier. But what's important is that we pay attention and we prioritize what we're passing down to our kids. And what we're passing down is the environment that we're cultivating. And I keep going back to that soccer field, that when I see joy in my kids, it just brings me joy. And there's a reciprocal give and take there. And I think for me, and I said this for the first time, again, not for the first time, but I think for the first time ever in my life, it's become a way of life instead of scarcity. I think scarcity was my way of life, and every now and again I found abundance. I have, through prayer, there's a lot of things. Jesus over the last 9 months has really radically taken my heart and molded it and shaped it and taught me a lot of valuable lessons as it relates to this. But one of those really valuable lessons is that I have, as I've sought him, as I've chosen him, as I've continually pressed in, I'm living more out of abundance mindset than the scarcity mindset. And now I can catch myself going into scarcity rather than living out of scarcity and every now and again going, oh, I love the abundance side. This is beautiful. And so, again, I think we're all on a journey there. And part of what's exciting about Famous at Home and what's coming up, and I can't wait for Christy to jump on the podcast as well here in the next few weeks, because we've got some really cool things coming that we can't wait to talk to you about. And part of that is this spiritual growth development. And I actually talked about that a few weeks ago, this parental or adult spirit, the spiritual development of a parent, spiritual growth of a parent. I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. But I genuinely believe that as we grow, so our kids grow, and each of us is moving into a place where we can experience more joy. And our focus is more so out of that abundance that I am truly loved. I experience the love of the Father, that though I walk through the valley shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for he is with me. He is an ever-present help in time of trouble. He brings life and life abundantly, John 10:10. That we walk in that was given to us through Jesus dying on the cross for us. And when we live out of that, man, our kids just pick up on it. And so I'm encouraged as a result of that. And I just wanted to give some insight today on kind of some of the places that we're moving into, because I think you're going to hear a little bit more of this. And we want to instill a spirit of joy in families. We want to instill a spirit of peace in families, a spirit of kindness in families, and cultivate that culture of emotional safety. But I believe that is an overflow of our own lives, the Spirit of God, right? The fruit of the Spirit of love and joy, peace and patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, and self-control. That is by staying, that all is an overflow of being connected to the vine. It's an overflow of being connected to the vine. John 15, right? This is purely, he is the vine, we are the branches. And anything that's not producing fruit, he prunes. And there might be a spot, because without him, we can do nothing, right? This is John, the Gospel of John. And these are Jesus' words. And there are times in my life where those difficult moments, Jesus was pruning stuff. He was pruning it. And I heard Tim Jennings, Dr. Tim Jennings, at Honey Lake, he described this. He's at Honey Lake Treatment Center. Incredible, bright man. I heard him say this past week at an event that I was at. He said, anytime we're broken, the path to healing requires pain. Anytime we're broken, the path to healing requires pain. And I thought it was fascinating. And I'm actually still processing some of this. But he said what happens is the world, the secular remedy is always to heal your brokenness without more pain. So in other words, let's use medication, for example. Medication will bypass the root of the issue to take care of the symptoms. And when you medicate the symptoms, you don't heal the root. Healing the root of the issue a lot of times causes more pain. But with Jesus, I mean, God the Father, you go to Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. I lack for nothing, is what it says. I lack for nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He comforts me. The rod and staff, they comfort me. And though I walk through the valley shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. He is with us. And all the days of our life, mercy, steadfast love, follow us all the days of our lives. And what's fascinating about that is he is the true path to healing. When we abide in Jesus, I think healing happens even faster. And what he also produces in that healing is joy, deeper kindness, deeper peace, deeper love, connection, joy, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, self-control. Because we're his kids. And as his kids, the Father is always molding and shaping us. He's always wanting us to experience more joy in him. He's always wanting us to experience his creation, his beauty, the spring, all of the fun things that are coming out in the trees and the flowers and the plants, and everything is blooming. And that's how he wants us to be. He wants us to bloom. Of course, there's going to be things that need to die off in order for us to produce that fruit, just like the seasons. But as the loving Father that he is, that's how he walks us through it. And as a father myself, watching my kids struggle, sin, confess, repent, I'm watching them. Yes, they go through pain in discipline, but on the other side of it is more and more joy. And right now, maybe it's just because we're in a season where we're seeing some of the fruits of this, but there's going to be bumpy roads ahead too. I get it. But in this world, we will have trouble. Yet, take heart. He has overcome the world. And when we press into him, in the daily, in the here and now, that's where true peace comes from. The peace that surpasses all understanding keeps our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. But when we focus on the problem, when we focus on the fear of how our kids turn out, what ends up happening is we end up losing focus on him. And then that's when we get back into scarcity mindset and we get into survival. We get into the survival years again, right? It's like we get into this place of woe is me and we're just not there. Now, granted, I will say, I'm going to come back and I am going to say there are seasons where it is difficult and you've got to hunker down. But if we're not pressing into Jesus, it makes it more difficult. It makes it more difficult. And so the medicated ways that we tend to do this, and I'm just going to share this, I just think, to bypass the pain is often we'll get online, we get on Netflix, we get on, whatever it is that comforts and soothes us to drown out and numb out, and that only prolongs it. And I just really want to encourage each of us to abide and find the way for you that helps you abide. And I can talk more about that in future episodes. But I do want to say this. I had a question come in into the podcast that I want to address as we close that relates to all of this. But let me just say this. Give your kids permission to experience joy. And the way that we give our kids permission to experience joy is by us as parents walking in that joy ourselves, knowing that we can live out of abundance, that we are truly loved, that we are truly seen, and we can have a lot of fun as a result, no matter what it is that we're experiencing in our lives. There is joy even when we're grieving. In fact, joy and grief walk very closely hand in hand. A lot of times when we suppress grief, this is a whole other conversation, but when we suppress grief is when we lack joy. So give your kids permission by cultivating an environment of joy, because there's nothing more beautiful than experiencing your kids' joy. Now, one of the things I will say to this, and it was a question that I recently had come in and I wanted to address it because I think it's important, where the question was asked, you talk a lot about emotional safety and cultivating emotional safety, particularly in the early years. What about as our kids get a little bit older into their elementary years and preteen years, when they know that they are safe? What is important to cultivate from that point forward or in that season? And it's a fantastic question. And it deserves its own entire podcast episode, which I will probably end up doing. Christy and I will probably jump on and talk about it. But the thing that we are learning and the thing that I'm experiencing as a result of this is there's one word and one phrase that I have come to think about as it relates to this. And actually, joy is one of those benchmarks, I think, for me, that I am creating or have created as how well did I do as a dad is, did I create and cultivate an environment of joy for my kids where they experience joy well into their adult years? And I think that's the filter through which I'm seeing things a lot more, because I tend to veer towards being a more serious dad. I'm not one who's just kind of a joyful human to begin with. I'm becoming more joyful. The Lord is sanctifying me through and through. But I think we have to cultivate that. And the word that I use for that is resourcefulness. I think resourcefulness is what brings kids joy. I think there's a degree to which when a child has been challenged in something, and yes, it's going to be hard, it's going to be painful, they're going to go through some pain in the process, but when they've been challenged, but they've overcome that challenge, there's a win on the other side that just feels exhilarating. And that's what I want to cultivate with my kids. And that's kind of what we've been cultivating. So ever since we sold our house last summer and we went to Pennsylvania for a season, now we're back in Tennessee, we're moving into the homesteading side of things, chickens, ducks, and the kids have taken on all of that responsibility. And it's fascinating to watch as they come to life, as they're experiencing joy in homesteading. And we had seen it for years. I mean, we've been praying into it for many, many years. And by the way, that's another whole other issue, is not an issue, but definitely an episode or conversation to have, is when you're praying into something for years and you're not seeing it come into fruition, but that's because the Lord's timing for it is right. We wanted this for years, but we weren't ready. There's no way we would have been ready for the homesteading years. Just even with Micah being born, the early years with him, we weren't ready for that. We are now. And God knew that. God knew the timing. His timing is perfect. And so it's been fun, and even, we're seeing them engage activities. I think what we have done is we've tried to expose them to as many activities as we could to find out what sticks, to find out what it is. Less screens, more activities. And because screens, they just want to go to screens, right? And I think, again, we can have more screen conversation here in the upcoming episodes. Jonathan Haidt just wrote a book called The Anxious Generation. I can put that in show notes. Fantastic book looking at, Screentime. He's an atheist out of Yale University, which is kind of amazing to me. And his big things, what's amazing to me is he's very, the things he's writing are very spiritual in nature. I mean, his 3 takeaways from that book, The Anxious Generation, is number 1, unsupervised independent play for children, which I love. Don't bubble wrap them. Unsupervised independent play for children. In other words, what he says is that the physical world is way less dangerous than the virtual world. No cell phones until your kids are in high school, and no social media until they're 16. And I think there's something to be said for this. And I think the screens are part of that issue. Anyway, my whole point is, we can get into screens another day. My whole point of that is let's get to a place where we allow our kids to experience activities and fail at those activities and see if they want to keep persevering through them. And if they don't, then we go, okay, so is this because of laziness, or is this because you actually don't like that activity? Whether that's a sport, whether it's music. I'm thinking of, Landon right now is into stagecraft and doing stage, being on stage and learning how to be on stage and what that looks like, and playing piano, and Kennedy's doing guitar, and, will these things stick? I don't know, but they sure are liking them right now. And so we just expose them. And I think as they get a little bit older, you continue to expose your kids to things and see what sticks. Where's the joy come from? And you champion whatever that is that they're coming, and just come alongside them and become students of your kids, but give them responsibility. We have to let them fail. When Kennedy comes in the house at night, we don't have a hose out there yet. So she comes in the house at night, the ducks, feeding the ducks, she's spilling water in the kitchen. And I'm like, honey, what are you doing? And so she's figuring all that out, and, she's cleaning that up. And, sometimes I come alongside her, sometimes I don't, depending on what I got going on, but they're being responsible. They're being resourceful. And I think those types of things give kids purpose. And I'm watching our kids develop purpose in the things that they're doing. And so once they feel safe, giving them purpose is everything, and helping them experience purpose. And that obviously flows out of identity, and identity, first of all, as a son or a daughter of the Father. They are co-heirs with Christ. And I think we have to be discipling our kids into their understanding of who they are in Christ, who they are in the kingdom. And that's what gets me excited, is there's just so much more for them, for the kingdom, the purpose that they can live out when they're doing that. And so to me, it's resourcefulness. I think that's a great word for it. It's balancing support and challenge and letting our kids fail, but also helping them understand that they're not a failure when they do, but coming alongside and supporting them in that and helping them to be resourceful in that process. Again, what we're doing is we're giving kids permission to experience the joy of living life and going through the ups and downs, but they're doing it in a safely cultivated environment. So it's just an extension of that emotional safety that you've already created. You're just extending what I talk about in Safe House is you're building that wall of protection, you're building the wall of exploration, and the wall of protection in your house is dropping a little bit more as the exploration wall builds. You want your kids to explore more and more and more, and your protection wall starts to even out a little bit more. Whereas in the early years, your wall of protection is a little bit higher. You want your kids to just learn how to explore more and find out who they are, and what they love and what their gifts are and what their talents are, and enter into their world in that process. And so I hope that's helpful. I wanted to this week just offer some encouragement. We have a lot of fun things coming up. I know I'm teasing some of that, and we'll continue to tease some of that here as it comes into fruition. But this week, as we come out of a lot of these interviews and a lot of the episodes that we did have, just wanted to continue to help you see what is shaping our hearts, what is shaping our minds as we are famous at home, and as we try to be famous at home, in our earthly home, what that means and looks like. And I think the more joy and the more permission we can give our kids to experience joy, it's just a beautiful thing. And so for those of you who are like, man, I'm just in a difficult season, I'm in those trenches right now, and you're maybe finding yourself in the scarcity mindset rather than the abundance mindset, I just encourage you to find one night this week that you can have a dinner where you use paper plates, you order in, and you do nothing but just experience joy as a family. Make it as simple and easy as possible. Make it as fun as possible. If your kids want to watch a movie, watch a movie. If they want to play games, if you want to have a dance party, if you want to play kids charades, whatever it is, just make it the most fun night that you can imagine, and start there and make it simple, make it easy, make it not a burden on you, and just enter in with joy as you head into that night, and start there. Because I genuinely believe that when we experience the joy in our kids' faces, it just propels us even more to want to cultivate that environment of joy as parents. So until next week, keep in mind that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door. We love you.